We have a fantastic keynote speaker on our agenda next. I'm excited to welcome Kelly Keel, who is the Executive Director of the TCEQ. Ms. Keel was appointed to that role just this past December. A 22-year veteran of the TCEQ, she has served in various roles within the agency, most recently as the Director of the Office of Administrative Services, where she oversaw the agency's budgetary, financial, information technology, and human resources functions. She's here today to provide us with an update on what the agency has been up to recently and to share her thoughts on the future of the agency going forward. Please join me in welcoming Director Kelly Keel to the stage.
Thank you and good morning. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here this morning and talk to y'all about TCEQ's key priorities moving forward. The first thing I'd like to do, though, is recognize the Texas Groundwater Protection Committee and also the Texas Alliance for Groundwater Districts and the fact that y'all are a membership on that committee. We really appreciate just the support and the engagement and y'all's interest in our activities. And so I know y'all have been really busy. You've got the joint report for 2023 that's going to be finalized here shortly, and then your legislative report to be submitted at the end of the calendar year. So thank y'all very much, again, for just your interest and support in the agency there and all your work there. TCEQ also, we have our own legislative reporting requirements, and so we're required to produce a groundwater management report as well. We do that in partnership with the Texas Water Development Board. So we will be submitting that towards the end of the calendar year for the legislative reporting requirements. So thanks for everything that y'all do to help us support those efforts. So turning towards some overarching agency priorities, I'm really focused on our core functions and focused on agency fundamentals, right? So we've come out of a COVID era. In doing so, the agency had over 400 vacancies, which was sort of unprecedented, not in a good way in terms of vacancies. Unfortunately, the legislature invested in us, invested in our salaries. Over the last 2 years, we've been able to fill a large number of those vacancies. We've had a lot of support from Chairman Perry, which we're appreciative of his support, both programmatically and from the money standpoint. And so we've seen those vacancy numbers come down, but now we have a lot of new folks that we need to try to train, develop, and retain for organizational resiliency. So that's another one of my priorities. And then we're also implementing sunset. So last legislative session, we went through the sunset review process, which determines, should our agency continue to exist and what improvements and enhancements should be put in place for the agency moving forward. So we're implementing those recommendations from sunset, and we have other legislative recommendations that we're implementing as well. And then getting ready for this coming session. So we have interim charges, we're participating in interim hearings, and then we're also looking at budget development. So the budget development is really front of mind for folks as well. At the end of this month, the TCEQ commissioners will take a public vote on what's called our legislative appropriations request. And within that legislative appropriations request includes exceptional items. And so exceptional items are things that are not within our budget from a year to year or biennium to biennium kind of budget cycle. And so this year, our exceptional item request is really unprecedented. I feel like the agency's resource needs are really unprecedented in terms of the demands on the agency for our services. You have economic development in Texas, the population increase in Texas, a staggering number of new federal requirements, frankly, that we are trying to be well poised for, and just emerging technologies in Texas. And how do we, as a regulatory agency, be prepared to take on those challenges? And I think we're eager to do it. We just want to have the resources and the people and the capability to be able to do that. So we're asking for an unprecedented number of people and money essentially to support that. I'd say our need is dire, and we would ask for y'all's support in that. We're looking at requesting 153 FTEs, which are employees, and about $115 million for the biennium over 2 years. So in 2011, which was 13 years ago at this point, we took an 8% cut in the number of FTEs at the agency. It was about 253 FTEs. So we're asking for about a 5% increase at 153. So we have 6 priorities in order I'm going to go through with y'all for those exceptional items. So the first one is enhanced permitting, compliance, and public engagement, which this represents about 115 employees. You know, just about every business in Texas has to come through the TCEQ turnstile to be able to do business here. And so we want that to go smoothly, and we want to be timely, and we've really got to have people to be able to do that. Our second priority is our salaries, and this is a retention effort. So if you look at the portfolio of our staff, we have filled a whole lot of vacancies, which is great news, but a lot of those folks are new to the agency. So about 50% of our staff have 5 years or less experience. About 30% of our staff have 2 years of experience or less, which I think is pretty stunning when you start to think about the complexity of the issues that we're all trying to work on and solve, the expectation that the agency be, you know, engaged, adaptive, that we're agile, and that we're able to solve those complex problems. So we need people with technical expertise. We need to have an organization that can be responsive to those in an effective and efficient way. We also lose folks to other state agencies, so the goal here is to bring our salaries up to a point that will be competitive with other state agencies. I think we always expect to lose folks to the private sector, but it stings a little harder when they're going to a sister state agency because we can't compete with the salaries there. And really, our employees, I think, are objected. Part of their job functions are different than some other state agencies, right? Like we have highly contentious public meetings, and our staff are expected to be outward facing with the public, and that's just not something that other state agencies, even regulatory agencies, may have to deal with. And you know, on the emerging technology front, there's so many things in that realm. You know. New desal facilities we're looking at, produced water, I think is a big one as well. And so I think that starts to give you a flavor for the complexities and the puzzles that TCEQ is trying to be a part of the solution and trying to help solve, and why we need competent staff to help us with that. Let's see. So our third priority is supporting administrative staff. So this is my prior role, all the glamorous things of government like budget and IT and finance and human resources. But it's what keeps the gears going. And also just from kind of a financial and budgetary standpoint, TCEQ's budget is really complex. We have a lot of different funds, a lot of different dedicated general revenue funds, and so the complexities of our fees and how that money is appropriated can be complex. And then our fourth priority is cybersecurity and modernization, which I think really goes hand in glove. A number of our systems are antiquated, and so for them to be resilient to cybersecurity, we need to update those. And so we're asking for 16 FTEs to support that. You know, in speaking with our chief security officers, you know, if we have a breach, we could be down for 2 or more weeks. And I mean, it could be really catastrophic to agency business. And so this is something that we're really trying to shore up, consistent with what some other state agencies are doing. Along those same lines, our fifth priority is what's called data center services. This is essentially where we work with another state agency. It's called the Department of Information Resources, and they have contractors that allow us to use money with their contractors to keep our systems up to date, to provide maintenance, to update and modernize as well. And so we work with that state agency on the appropriate kind of estimates we would need to keep our IT systems at a reasonable pace to help us manage our programs effectively. And then our sixth priority is the Restore the Texas Coast program. So we need FTEs to support that. And the purpose of that program is to help with things like land acquisition using federal funds. So we think that's a reasonable use of state resources as well. So again, really, we're just looking for an investment in human capital, an investment in human infrastructure to support the organizational resiliency so we can really do what folks are expecting. And in some ways, I feel like we're trying to level up to where we need to be so that then we can be prepared to start addressing some of these emergency technologies that are really coming our way. and continuing to implement from the last legislative session and continue to implement from sunset. So one of the big calls to action as a part of the sunset process was for us to have information more readily available to the public and enhanced public engagement. So one thing we're working on is putting permit applications that are considered administratively complete on our website so that they are more accessible to the public, so that it's more user-friendly. We've put together videos on how to engage with TCEQ for public engagement. We're working on our website architecture to make it more usable. We're improving our data mapping, all things that take time and money that we're trying to improve for our stakeholders and the public. We're also updating our compliance history tool. This is essentially a kind of a report card for regulated entities. We usually produce that once a year on an annual basis. We're going to be looking to do that more frequently to provide that information to the public. We have an enforcement diversion program that was part of our sunset that we're looking to implement as well for small business and local governments. And so we've got information. This is a high-level summary of our sunset implementation. So if you'd like some additional information on any of those or other specifics, I would welcome you to take a look at on our website where you have information on the status of those and some of those details. And then specific legislation, we also have information on our website as far as where we are with rulemaking processes or other implementation for legislation. But specifically SB 2440, related to county and city planning that must include groundwater certification. We're reviewing the comments as a part of that process, and we're very appreciative to all the comments that we've received from y'all in this community, especially as it relates to the technical requirements and any jurisdictional variances. So thank you for that. And I expect that to go before the commission for them to consider an adoption rule package in the fall. So thank you for the meaningful comments there. We are also working on implementation of HB 4256. So this is the Leaking Water Well Grant Program. This is a new program for TCEQ, so we're trying to sort of leverage our learning curve on this one. We've coordinated with the Railroad Commission, and the eligibility for these grants is limited to the Middle Pecos. So we're working to implement the program. We're planning to have some rulemaking this fall, but there is a little bit of a hiccup on this one. We were appropriated the funds, but the rider language didn't authorize us to use those appropriations, and so that's something that I think people may be interested in as well. Like I said, other legislative information is on our website, and then interim hearings, of course, in response to interim charges. So we've been really actively involved in those as well. We've participated in hearings related to the Panhandle fires and our role as it relates to debris management. We've participated in hearings related to response to Hurricane Beryl and our efforts, again, related to debris management, boil water notices, supporting drinking water systems, wastewater systems, and that sort of thing. We participated in the Senate Committee on the Committee for Natural Resources and Economic Development on federal requirements and what that means for agency operations. Like I mentioned, there's a whole host of requirements coming down from the federal government, air, water, across the board. So we've participated in those hearings. We have another committee hearing for Water, Ag, and Rural Affairs first week of September. Here we'll be talking about water system reliability and rates. TCEQ's role on that is generally historic, and we provide data and help coordinate with the PUC and again with the board on that, so we'll be discussing that. We'll be discussing produced water at that hearing as well. And then another Senate committee hearing, this is again Natural Resources and Economic Development, mid-September, to discuss the interim charge related to cement production plants. So we'll be reviewing the impacts of permanent cement production plants on local communities. So we'll be present at both of those committees and testifying. And then towards the end of the month, there's a House Committee on Natural Resources where we'll be discussing boil water notices and public water systems. I think that's all I've got. So again, thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to answer any questions here that y'all may have, and just appreciate just the partnership with this community and everything that y'all do to help support what our agency is trying to do, and working together with y'all and just being engaging and communicative. So I'll be here for a little bit afterwards, of course, so happy to answer questions there. Morgan Johnson's here with me. She's my chief of staff / senior counsel. She knows a lot about water stuff too, so we'll be happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions for Director Keel? All right. Well, thank you very much.
Oh, shoot, I think.
Oh, sorry, we do have one.
Just being shy. Can you talk more about the water well plugging funds and what the rulemaking would look like, even if are you still able to start the rulemaking on that, even if you don't know if you can spend the funds?
Yeah, sorry, the speaker's facing that way, so I couldn't hear the beginning of that, but I think I followed what you were saying. So we're still going to proceed with program implementation, meaning putting the rules in place so that if we are authorized to use the appropriations, we'll be ready to go. But in the absence of that authorization, we don't have funds to distribute. But we're trying to put everything in place, the framework, if it's needed.
And you said you're going to start this fall on that
Yes, ma'am.
rulemaking? Okay.
Yep, thank you. All right, thank you again.